inside by the door. Push the fingers through the surface into the wet.
Honor. That is why a knight does what he does.
Are you ready?
So we have The Green Knight. So Green Knight is, it was a movie that I thought everybody had started seeing the trailer for at one point or another, but I was mistaken. Once again, just old MovieMan getting targeted on Instagram and socials. You might have seen a trailer for Green Knight if either A, you have gone to any movie recently and obviously seen the trailer, or B, if you follow things like A24 on Instagram or you're a fan of, you know, the like the indie movie scene or borderline indie movie scene. Green Knight I wouldn't call an indie movie. It's definitely it's like pretty much a blockbuster. At least it's shot to be one. But the thing about Green Knight is I don't think it's going to be as well received as much of A24's body of work. And by that, I don't mean A24 is making these films. Keep in mind, whenever you see A24, they're a production company in that they help to produce and back and support the films and all that. It's kind of like when Hostel, when that came out back in the day, it said Quentin Tarantino presents, but the film was directed by Eli Roth. But back in that day, Eli was still a budding director, while Tarantino was kind of, you know, more well known. So he kind of was like, oh, I introduced this guy for this film. That's kind of why you see, like, oh, you know, from the producers of Get Out, it's like, yeah, okay, so Blumhouse or another company had something to do with it. Didn't mean the director of Get Out did this film. So A24 produced this, so it's like, it's going to be an A24 film. It's going to be, you know, whatever the director wants to do, complete artistic, creative freedom, and the movie delivers on that. But when I say not well received, think about Hereditary, right? A lot of people that are, you know, even casual film watchers or goers know about Hereditary or have seen it. It's a very popular horror film that A24 helped to produce. But The Green Knight, not many people have heard about it. People aren't even sure what the story originated from. And it's not going to be as popular because it's a different type of movie that is, I can imagine, not going to be well received by your average audience. Starting from the top down, we have director David Lowry, who the name, like, even for me as an avid, like, film goer, it only kind of vaguely rung a bell. Going into his filmography, the only stuff you don't really know from him recently is A Ghost Story, which I didn't get a chance to see, but I think it's supposed to be good. That Pete's Dragon remake, surprisingly, but also something like The Old Man and the Gun, that with Robert Redford. I mean, anything with him has got to be good, right? So, I mean, again, established filmography, but I'm not a very big connoisseur of his work. Really, there's only one star, and that's in this film, and that's Dev Patel, the one you see as the Noble Knights Gawain in all the trailers and all that. King Arthur's Court, Knight of the Round Table, and whatnot. But you would only really know him from, I guess his breakout role was Slumdog Millionaire. He's been in other stuff since then, obviously. He's been in that one Lion movie, or Leon, or however you pronounce it, that did really well. And also Hotel Mumbai. But, I mean, he's a good actor. He's a really good actor. The only other kind of big names that you might immediately recognize are Sean Harris, who plays King Arthur in this, and you don't see him in face to face, but the Green Knight himself is voiced by Ralph Ineson, who has a very, very, like, unmistakable voice. So he more or less is, I mean, the movie is, I mean, called The Green Knight, you know, it's mostly about the Green Knight, so I want to give him some credit where credit's due, because that voice work is, like, top notch. On the actual title of the video, Green Knight is definitely, like, the first thought I had after getting out of it was like, man, I felt like I was dreaming. Like, you're watching the film and it feels like a fever dream. Like, you start to get to know the film and what it's trying to do, which is that what's going to lose a lot of people is this film. I mean, this film itself, narratively, is not grounded in reality, but in general, the film is not grounded in reality. Because as you're going through, you start to realize that things start happening, start getting kind of weird, a bit spiritual, maybe a bit spooky. Some things don't quite add up. and you start to realize, oh, there's no true way of knowing like what really is going on right now, like how much of this is actually physically happening in the world of this movie, or how much is more about this young knight's spiritual journey through it. So that might lose a lot of the audience members, I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to call it a slow burn either, but keep this going in mind when you go to see this. It is a take on a classic like Arthurian tale, a brave knight going out to try to get some honor and like stake his claim out there. He wants to come back with a good story, having vanquished a foe, pretty much it. But he's going out and embarking on a quest, his very first like big quest. So, normally you think about medieval quests like that and you think, oh, going over here, slaying beasts, running away from bandits, doing this. It's more of a slow burn in the sense where it's not like an action movie. I mean, there's some moments of action, but I'm pretty sure, unless I'm mistaken, steel never touches steel in this movie. Like, you see Game of Thrones and you see, episode 1, clean, I got him. I don't think a single... Blows are definitely struck in this film, in more ways than one. But steel never meets steel in this movie, and it still works for me. But a lot of people are going to go into this, especially seeing the trailer, and think, oh, it's going to be like a swashbuckling, like, going to go out there, become the brave knight, conquer the enemy, figure out the true meaning of honor, and head back home. And you'd be a half right, maybe a quarter right. The pros are fantastic production design. I can't stress this enough. The amount of effort that goes into costumes, environments, the materials they're using in scenes, like the film feels so real that I could reach out and fucking touch it. Like whoever all got together to make this world that this film takes place in, like bravo, fucking vo, because you hit it out of the park. You did it. Like it's great. The production design, I can't go on enough about it. I'm just saying, like like everything in the movie, the props, the tools, the set pieces and all that, like everything it looks great, man. Cinematography and directing are great. Every camera choice, I feel, serviced the narrative well. There's a lot of like, when I say again fever dream, it's because a lot of shots and all that like start to play with the difference between like, again, what's reality and what's not. And in doing so, the camera movement, the camera, panning, whether it's like doing a tilt or doing a full like upside down 180, whatever the camera does and whatever the director decides to do with the scene works to service that kind of vibe we're going for here. And I think he accomplishes what he set out to do in that, If you don't know, so here, like, this is both a pro and a con. If you don't know the story of the Green Knight, a lot of people don't. I sure as hell didn't. And thanks to a promotional video that A24 did, they basically were like, okay, the Green Knight is basically this really super, super old poem that was found years and years and years and years, centuries ago. And there was like one copy, and nobody really knows who wrote it. And it's a story about like the whole King Arthur's court and about this knight who does go on a quest to try to gain honor and reputation, right? And like it ends in not most positive lights, but this film is a take on that. What the con of that is that if it weren't for this film, if it weren't for that little promotional video, I wouldn't have known certain characters going into this, like the fact that it was like, we have obviously Sir Gawain is addressed by name many a time, but who King Arthur was, the fact that Merlin is in this movie, that like, all these different characters that are all part of King Arthur's court. But hell, average moviegoer who sees like one trailer for this movie and goes into it, they don't really overtly tell you that. So I knew going into it what story I was about to see unfold. But I think it puts the audience at a bit of a disadvantage to not at least inform them, or, unless I missed it in the film, to give them a more clear-cut notion of, oh, no, this is the setting of it. Like, I got that it was medieval, I got that it was castle, knights, royalty, and the inverse of that, but I didn't, if it weren't for that video, I don't think I would have comprehended that it was, the round table, I liked how the movie pulled off, that all this kind of feels like, it's more of a spiritual journey for our character. And I really like the message about honor that you get by the end of it. I'm not going to spoil what happens in the film. I try never to do that. But I do like how it does tackle that subject of, like, what it means to like to have honor, what honor really is like, how you would gain that, how you would preserve it, and this character's kind of journey and inner transformation in trying to find that. I liked seeing that, both in the subtle nuances and the overt, like, psychological journey he takes. But it really felt like I was along with him on the ride for this one. Dev Patel did a very, very good job in this film. And the unfortunate part about that is that a lot of audiences aren't going to connect in the way that I did. And I could tell because I already, like, people's reviews are like, snooze fest. Like, it's one of those ones where it's like I kind of side with the critics on it because, like, thematically speaking, I see deeper than just, the very base narrative of it. But at the same time, your average audience moviegoer, not to denounce anybody's intelligence here, but most people aren't going to get on board with it. That's just how it is. That's just how some narratives are. And I did like how there's just a note. There's heavy symbolism, and I'm sure you could write like a dozen papers and dissertations on hidden meaning, both visually in the film, in the characters, and how the narrative goes. I'm sure you could like theory craft on what you might think the ending truly means, how you thought the movie went. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I'm sure there'll be plenty, just like all my other favorite films, plenty of video essays people are going to make, kind of dissecting the film, discussing it. And I always love that. I like to hear other people's opinions and input. And, I'll sit down for an hour and watch a video about, Blade Runner or Annihilation or what have you. I always find those to be interesting. So I can't wait to watch whatever people make for The Green Knight. Stuff that I might make, but definitely don't have the time or the smarts to do it. What I will say is I felt like the film for me did lack a certain narrative punch. Like, I was in it. I was along for the ride. I never once felt like bored or removed from the story, but I never once felt like sucked or pulled in. I was curious to see how it would go. I was rooting for our main character, and I was wanting to see how this narrative would pan out by the end. But at the end of the day, I wasn't. I mean, some films, like for me, the ones that get to perfection are the ones where I'm like, I'm in, I'm hooked. 2 hours disappears and I'm like, what just happened? All there was movie for me. And this wasn't quite there for me. Not a bad story, don't get me wrong. It was a really, really, really good story, but it just lacked a certain engaging factor for me that I personally could have used to really suck me into it, And then this is more of just a personal nitpick, because I like it when for all the shit I give The Witch, and for all the love that I give The Lighthouse, both of those films, thank God for Robert Egger, right? Those films were very authentic to the period. And while this film did a very good job with authenticity in regard to production design, I felt that it was lacking so in writing, like in the actual, dialect and dialogue of that time. And they kind of they keep some of the dialect medieval and kind of that time period, but you can tell that they, again, I don't want to say dumb it down, but they kind of translated better so that more of an American or more of like a modern audience can pick up on the writing and the script and all that. Like some films, like The Lighthouse and The Witch, make you really work for that comprehension, understanding of the script. And this one is like, no, they kind of make it a bit easier for you. It's still fairly colloquial for the terminology they use and how people speak, but not 100% there, but it's damn close enough. So overall, I don't want to meander on too much. I personally I enjoyed The Green Knight. I'll probably buy it when it comes out. I liked it. I didn't love it. I didn't love it, but I really enjoyed it. I think that it has more pros than cons, but it does have a few cons. And I think personally speaking, I would give The Green Knight a low 4 out of 5. It's not close to perfection, but at the same time, it's not only average or above average. I thought it was a really good film. A fucking fever dream of a film if I ever saw one, but it works for me and what I'm looking for in a film. It was interesting. I like the concepts. I like the message. I like the acting, the cinematography, direction, the visuals. The visuals. I mean, watch it. You'll see. I think it's worth a showing in theaters, but if you're unsure about it, maybe wait to rent it or check it out if it streams after its release, or if it's even available to stream now. If you're unsure, check it out and rent it. But if you like films even half as much as I do, and I love film, then you might not be one. You might be one of those guys and gals that's going to be like, okay, I'm going to sit down and probably enjoy this and get more out of it than just, what a baseline film might give you. So, in my experience, A24 delivers on helping to produce everything from AAA blockbusters to like more indie art house films, usually more of the latter, or just creative projects, and this was no exception. It was an interesting take on an Arthurian tale of like a poem that like nobody would ever really know about. So props there. I now know the story of the Green Knight, and I know this film's interpretation of that story, and I accept both, and I enjoyed myself. So yeah, that's all there is to it. Low 4 out of 5, but I'd say check it out. I say personally it's worth it. If you like half the films that I like, you'll probably enjoy this one at least a little bit. Plus there's some good names in it besides the one I mentioned. A few surprises, but anyway. That was my review for The Green Knight. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next review that I do. Goodbye, travelers.